Lasky from Parsons Child and Family Center. Welcome to Ask the CEO, a series where we respond to questions about the affiliation submitted by staff members from both Parsons and from Northeast. Today I'm joined by Parsons CEO Ray Schimmer. So Ray, why don't you just give us a background on the affiliation and where we stand right now?
Sure. It's been a long process, Melissa. We're now getting into about 3.5 years out from the first conversations. We've done an awful lot of very basic fundamental work, identifying the basic model, putting down the essential principles that we'd come back to as we made decision after decision. We're progressing to the point now where we're at a level of detail that's finer than we've been at in the past. I've been actually surprised, and I perhaps should not have been, by the number of details that we've had in the situations that have come up that we haven't necessarily anticipated. But we're working through them. I've been, on the other hand, extremely pleased and admiring of the staff response to these various issues. People are working in a very directed fashion at this point right now on a variety of projects, many of them involving the creation of the central services that will serve both affiliates going forward. It's been exciting. The line between excitement and terror is a thin one, but we've been on the right side of it most of the time, and I think we're moving ahead the way we need to.
Well, that's good. Sounds like we're, that fine line is a nice one to be on this side of.
Yes.
So, all right, well, let's get to some of the questions that we've gotten from Parsons and Northeast staff. How will the affiliation be good for children and families?
Well, I think the first answer is kind of an obvious one. The missions of the two organizations are almost identical. We want kids to grow up to be productive citizens. We want families to enjoy integrity throughout the child rearing career. And we think that if we combine the resources and the personnel of these two organizations, we're going to be able to do a better job of that. More specifically, we think that we will expand the range of service and the volume of service. By range, I mean we'll be able to go from the early family support services that Parsons has developed over the years all the way through Northeast's very nicely articulated series of vocational programs and services that they've got. The idea in the long run, and we certainly won't be there at the outset, but in the long run, we want every service that's available at either organization ready to help any family that needs it.
So will we be sharing cases?
We won't at first. We may in the end. We'll certainly be sharing our energies and our efforts. When we start, we're going to retain the contracts of each affiliate agency at that agency. So we'll have residential contracts with the counties that Northeast has. We'll have the same that Parsons has. And we will definitely be setting out as two distinct agencies that are affiliated by a common governance structure, but two agencies that will manage the cases they currently have as their cases. As we move along, we're hoping that we're going to be able to increase the amount of cross-consultation and organized service delivery for both cases. It's going to be a slow process. I told somebody the other day that I thought this first year, or perhaps even 2 years, are almost a larval phase for us as we go ahead. We're going to grow into adulthood here slowly. It won't happen on day one, but we will get there.
All right. And what immediate changes will occur for staff in supervision, employment, work site hours, the whole bit?
For people who will be the people who will be experiencing immediate changes have already, by and large, experienced them. You, of course, being one of them. These immediate changes are going to be confined to the central services or administrative services. We're not going to do anything specifically with the client services right now. So the communications department, of which you're a member, the development department, the new strategic planning and business development department, training department, and quality and compliance departments. Those are departments that we're working on right now, so that on July 1st we will have coordinated the resources of both organizations in those areas. We've been doing that now for probably 6 months to date, and by the time we get to July, we'll have a solid 9 months working on those things. The other programs aren't going to see much difference. We're not going to be changing the location of the programs. We're not going to be changing supervisors. We are not going to be merging departments together. I'm not sure that the program service workers are going to see an awful lot of direct change. And again, as I say, the administrative offices are seeing changes, but we've been working on it for quite a while now.
All right. And will there be opportunities for advancement across agencies?
It's interesting. So many of these questions were the questions and the ideas that I think has certainly crossed my mind when we were at the beginning of this process. Once we realized the detail and the changes that had to be made in order to make them possible, these, in my mind, receded to things that we would be able to accomplish at a point in time further down the road. But it's exactly what we want to do. It's exactly where we want to go. We hope that by the time we have brought this affiliation to maturation, that the opportunities for advancement, and not only certainly hierarchical advancement for staff, but also for the chance to do creative work and work that they haven't been able to engage in before, that those opportunities will be multiplied. We'll have 12 to 1,400 people working together, and again, idea in the long run is that we'll be able to cross between agencies with supervisors and staff. That will not be the case beginning, though. We've got a lot of work to do before we can get to that point.
Sounds like a great path.
It should be a lot of fun for everyone.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on. Are salaries and benefits different now at each agency, and will they be standardized?
They really are different, and that's about as much as we know right now. We're in the process of inventorying salaries and benefits on both sides. We've got to do that across agency, across departments, and it's going to take a while. The idea is that, yes, we will standardize these things, but we're at stage one right now, and that is to try to find out what the situation exactly is. It gets complicated when we think of a concept like total compensation, meaning not simply your salary, but your salary, your fringe benefits, your health care, your pension or your retirement, the insurance policies that we have. We've got to, again, first identify those things, and then we've got to be able to compare them. And this is a comparison that right now is an apples and oranges comparison. So it's going to take a while. Do we want to have things standardized? We absolutely do. But again, one of the principles or the concepts that we came up with very early in this is that we intend to go slowly and try not to bite off more than we can chew. The goal here is, it's a terrific goal, and we think that the outcome will be, it'll be what we want to have happen, but we're also clear that we can frustrate ourselves by trying to do too much too soon. So we'll proceed slowly, but yeah, that is a place we want to get to.
And similarly, will benefits be improved or made more affordable, do you see, with the process?
We hope so. This is a crisis at the moment for all nonprofits, and we're all struggling with the health care rising cost of health care and the strains on the various types of retirement systems that we have. What we're pretty sure, though, is that by accomplishing this affiliation, we're going to be able to bargain much more effectively with the people who sell fringe benefit packages. So that when we approach a healthcare company, if we're doing that with 1,200 people we're going to get a vastly better deal than we will get if we go out with 700 people. So it remains to be seen how the numbers will work out, but we think we're going to be in a much stronger position and that we'll be able to do better things than we've been able to do in the past.
Sounds good. Now, most of the managers in the new departments are from Parsons. Do you have any response to that?
Yes, and the good questions go both ways. My first response is the idealistic one, which is I hope before too long we're not thinking that way anymore. Secondly, and we've even talked with the board about this, in order to put the board of directors together, we had to divide up. And we had arguments from the board of directors, and depending upon who's in the conversation, you'll get exactly the opposite points of view. And I've had the other presentation from Parsons. Just change the names that are in there. We will work toward not the dominance of one culture or the other culture, but we're working toward the creation of a third culture, and that will obviously take time to do. But that's where we're going with this. Whatever the management alignments are for the central services right now, and I'm presuming you're only talking about the central services because those are the only places that we've combined any of the resources to date. This will all change over time. We anticipate retirements and attrition, and those things will, the relationships, if you're keeping score of Parsons in Northeast, are going to change pretty quickly. And again, I think by the time they do, you won't be thinking about Parsons in Northeast anymore.
So this kind of is along that same line.
Mm-hmm.
We've always had our own CEO. Will we in the future? And if not, who will represent us administratively?
Okay. When we start in July, the arrangement, one of the other questions asked for an organizational chart. Organizationally, I will be the CEO of Northern Rivers Family Services in July. John Henley will be the executive vice president, and he will be, I believe the current terminology we're using is a chief operating officer of Northern Rivers. In that role, he will in effect be the CEO or the executive director of both organizations. When I leave, our succession plan has John assuming the role of CEO of Northern Rivers. And I would fully expect, although we have not written this and memorialized it in any way, but I would fully expect at that point in time that we would have individuals identified as the chief administrator at each affiliate. Whether we call that an executive director or a vice president, I'm not sure yet. But that organizational structure with a CEO as the head of Northern Rivers and chief administrators at each affiliate is almost certainly the direction we're going to go. Under that scenario, each affiliate would have a principal representative in the Northern Rivers Forum.
So let's get into Northern Rivers a little deeper.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you give us a little background on the name? How did that come up,
okay.
and what's the background on that?
Good. We were looking for a name that was as amazingly bland as we could find. And the reason for that is that one of these, again, initial decisions we made was that a lot of this was going to be about retaining the unique legacies of Northeast and Parsons going forward. These are two of the oldest child welfare family services agencies in the United States of America. And we prize highly the legacies that they bring to the community. So we wanted to keep those, and we wanted to keep those foremost in people's minds. We wanted a name that would identify both Parsons and Northeast, and the rivers here that we're talking about are the Hudson River and the Mohawk River. The Northern Rivers, the northern adjective was picked to delineate our catchment area, and you could substitute for northern the phrase other than New York City, and sort of on the eastern part of the state, and I think you'd have what we were trying to do.
So someone had asked, why did you choose the name Northern Rivers, and why is it more like Northeast? I assume it's just because we're in this geographical area?
Exactly. And at that point, we weren't worrying too much about it. Again, I know everybody's not at the same place I am because I've been working on this a lot longer than anyone else has, but I'm way past the scorekeeping. And I'm way into the notion of what we're going to be able to do as an affiliated organization. Just to add on here, another reason for choosing that name is we certainly hope that what we create here is going to be of value not only to these two affiliates but to the community as a whole. And we certainly are building this so that if other organizations want to affiliate with us, they'll be able to do that without sacrificing their own legacies and their own identities as well. So that, again, a purposely bland Northern Rivers title, we wanted to be acceptable to other people who might recognize the advantages of pooling resources without the cost of giving up your individual identity.
So this question goes right along with the individual identities. Will traditions like holiday events, social functions, staff parties, will those be combined or will they continue separately? How will they be affected?
Now, we're going to be dancing here. Again, we're going to try to create this third culture, but none of us anticipate eliminating or blurring again, these priceless identities that have been developed. Parsons has we're into almost 10 generations of people who have supported the values of this organization. Northeast has combined the old SPCA over in Schenectady with the Child Welfare Organization. These are things that happened here in this part of the country almost before any other place. So we want to keep that going. We take the traditions very seriously. So the short answer here is any traditions that the two organizations have developed on their own that they want to keep, they're going to keep. We may develop new ones, but we're not going to eliminate any of the old ones unless the affiliate community, the agency community, decides it doesn't want those anymore. Here at Parsons, I still think we're going to see the Lawn Festival. Northeast is still going to have its champions, and again, we may invent more, but we're not going to try to homogenize these two organizations.
Great. And how many staff will Northern Rivers have? And will all staff eventually move from their affiliate agencies into Northern Rivers?
Great question. Again, reflecting our growing appreciation of the importance of the details here, at this point, we're thinking that Northern Rivers will probably have 2 employees, and that would be me and John Henley. The complications that are involved with fringe benefits and legal issues were such that, again, going back to that concept of starting small, we have moved way back, and we are going to begin this in sort of a minimalist fashion. The projection is ideally that within 3 to 5 years we will have brought into Northern Rivers the central services. Right now the development department will operate out of Northern Rivers, but the members of the staff will remain in Northeast and in Parsons. That'll be the model that we're going to use for most of the central services starting out. The finance people will stay in finance, the QI people will stay in their individual agencies. Again, the goal would be then eventually we will bring those folks in, but we've got to iron out details about the portability of their fringe benefits, about the issues of consolidated budget reporting. There are a variety of little details that we've got to go. So probably on July 1st there'll be 2 of us. Probably from 3 to 5 years out there will be more. They will almost certainly only be central services people though.
Okay. And will staff be given opportunities to brainstorm and to interact with each other?
That's one of the that's one of our highest goals. One of our concepts here is that if we increase the critical mass of brains and experience, we're going to be able to do a better job. And we've certainly found this in all of the work that we've done together already. When we get in the room together, the very fact that we are from different organizations and have different points of view has been a great asset. And it's increased the kind of intellectual palette that we have available for us. We've thought about and will continue to think about how we design the workspace so that we can actually promote interchange among staff. What sort of meetings should we have, communication like this and other vehicles that we haven't thought of yet. But if we're unable to maximize the creative potential that comes when you put experienced, intelligent people together, we will have failed. We're not going to let that happen. This should be an opportunity for our staff members to enjoy one of the most creative periods of their professional lives if we organize this properly.
Sounds exciting.
It will be.
Here's a Parsons-specific question for you. Will this affiliation help with Parsons' goal of replacing or rehabbing buildings?
In the short term, no. In the long term, I think it's exactly what we need to do. We will be kicking off later this month a strategic plan. In the discussions that we've had relative to this affiliation and in discussions that I've had throughout the state on this, the future of child welfare, child and family mental health, special education is tied up to an extraordinary degree with the property, the real property that these agencies own, the buildings that they own, and the debt that they have on that. Mishandled debt will strangle an organization, and it will prevent creative development of services to kids and families. Handled properly, it obviously expands your ability to care for people in the most extreme, under the most extreme circumstances. So we are going to dive into strategic planning as quickly as we can, and we will be thinking about the entire physical plant that's currently in the hands of the two affiliate organizations. Everything that Parsons has, everything that Northeast has, and we will be considering that with a specific focus on where we want to be 5, 10 years out. Some properties we may want to redevelop. Some we may want to shed. But we'll make those decisions again relative to where we want the whole organization to be.
How much has the affiliation cost so far?
As of 2 weeks ago, Parsons had spent $103,000 on the affiliation, and Northeast had spent a similar amount, probably close to exactly the same. We had to hire a law firm from Rochester, a law firm that did a lot of work on one of our colleague agencies' affiliations. We stayed with them about a year and used them to help us design the fundamental affiliation model, which is the Northern Rivers parent company and the two affiliates. We have then transitioned to a financial and legal due diligence firms, and we paid them as well. We anticipate there will be some continuing costs, but that we're getting to the end of the road with that aspect of it. You can't do this for free. We've done it as inexpensively as possible, and the staff who've been working on this can confirm that. We have not had money to throw around in this process. It's been difficult when you consider the hospital merger process after the Berger Commission. The state made a lot of money available to those organizations to handle things like retirement obligations, like IT development in particular. That was money that was not available to us. So our expenditures to date have been on the legal services that we needed to move this forward. We're working hard. We met with the governor's office last week. We'll be continuing to try to generate money from grants and foundations to help us with some of the expenses in the future. A big one for us, Melissa, is going to be IT. We have 2 different IT platforms. That doesn't necessarily mean that we've got to combine those platforms. We're exploring possibilities with cloud technology that may make it possible for us to retain our individual platforms, but still move information into a cloud site that will, where it will be available to both of us. And I've already told you way more than I really know about this. But we are exploring this, and it will cost money, and we'll look for other places to get it. But so far, with respect to this sort of activity, it's been a very low-cost operation for us.
Sounds like you've been plenty busy.
Yes, yeah. But again, as we've said, relative to other projects that people are working on, it's creative busy. And I hope that we'll be able to extend that opportunity to as many staff as possible, because it is interesting to be able to build something.
Now, a common question seems to be about the, similar departments at Northeast and at
Yes.
Parsons. So will similar departments be collapsed into one, and would redundant positions be eliminated?
One of the principles that we established with the 2 boards starting out is that we would not be reducing staff as a result of this affiliation, that it was not a goal of the affiliation to save money by reducing staff. In point of fact, what we're hoping is that we will be able to increase the number of staff and increase the volume of care that we deliver out of Northern Rivers. We have no plans right now for the collapsing of departments. As I've mentioned in other places, the 2 agencies will retain their individual contracts and will move ahead. Any kind of collapsing that's going on right now is happening in central services and only in central services. And we've simply reassigned people to different job duties. We have not cut any staffing yet, and hope that we don't have to.
So there's no plan to combine departments?
No. What we are doing, though, is collaborating, and in our descriptive documents for the boards, we use the phrase collaborative partnership. So that we have, there are discussions, for example, going on between the 2 schools. There's no advantage whatsoever to collapsing the 2 schools. Our populations are somewhat different, and our methodologies are a little bit different as well. But there's amazing benefit to be gained in having the staffs talk to one another, to discuss common issues, to make plans for common advocacy, and perhaps in the long run share facilities or share staff. But again, there's no advantage per se to collapsing the 2 departments, and we're seeing the same sorts of things in residence, in foster care, in the waivers, particularly in the waivers, because we are doing almost the same work there. And we're doing that across the entirety of eastern New York. So we may see things like co-location of staff in the long run that will be beneficial with respect to the administrative expenses. But right now, there does not appear to us to be an awful lot to be gained by collapsing the departments per se, and we have no plans to do that.
What are the plans for raises and cost of living adjustments?
Well, we're in the most difficult time in my administrative career right now. We go into the 2012-2013 budget year having been told by the state of New York that there will be no cost of living increases in our rates for child welfare, none in child and family mental health, and we're in the 3rd year of that situation with respect to special education departments. So the plans that we might make as part of this affiliation are feeling like a little irrelevant with respect to the larger governmental contracting situation right now. Ideally, we're certainly clear on the concept that there's a correlation between compensation after some point, correlation between compensation and excellence in performance. And so The notion that, again, we can operate this organization more efficiently and effectively, and using those efficiencies, improve the total compensation that's available for staff is one that's in our minds. It's a little bit difficult for me right now to jump to that, given the particular circumstances that we're facing.
And how will the greater communities benefit from the affiliation?
That's a great question, and it's at the bottom, I think, of everything. When I'm at my most pessimistic and I take a look at what's happening financially with respect to government support of our work, I wonder how we will be able to continue to make services available to kids and families, how we'll be able to sustain, as it's been sustained now for almost 200 years in Parsons' case, the values that apply to the health of children, their ability to grow, the family's right to enjoy a child-rearing career that is a productive and gratifying one to everyone involved. We, all of us, certainly at the board and executive level, think that this kind of affiliation, the redesign of our governance, is going to make it much more likely that this community is going to enjoy access to those values and the ability to put those values into action if we've got an affiliated group than if we don't. The Stony Lodge Hospital announced 3 weeks ago that it was closing. It was open on Thursday, and on Friday it wasn't open anymore. While we've made huge advances in child-family work, the road goes both ways. We can roll back as well, and we feel a very powerful obligation to make sure that we've got the strongest governance structure and the most solid financial apparatus in place. This affiliation helps us do that. Just a sort of technical or an inside baseball point here, there are national organizations now, mega organizations, that are expanding throughout the country. We think that were that to happen here, were large order national agencies to move into this region, the region would lose some of its individual identity, and more prosaically, but equally importantly, some of the overhead might go to Nashville, Tennessee, or it might go to California. Right now, the money that Parsons and Northeast bring into this region stays in this region. We think that having a powerful and a large affiliated organization is going to make it much more likely that that resource will stay here.
And one of our questions is for your response that this is a step from being a caring agency to becoming a large corporation with practices that may have negative effects and reduce staff productivity.
Right.
What's your response to that concern?
You bet. That's something that could happen. If it does happen, it'll be because we weren't paying attention, and if it doesn't happen, it'll be because we didn't want it to be that way. We're pretty sure that business circumstance, governmental circumstance, the recession at large is driving business activity toward consolidation in larger organizations. A larger organization is simply more capable of surviving economic ups and downs than a smaller one is. It's got the capability to develop specialization in central services that are you just have to have it these days. You have to have IT, you have to have communications, you have to be able to follow your billing and your finances and your compliance. And it's very difficult to do that if you're a small agency. So we're moving in that direction. We want to make sure that, again, our values and our activities are sustainable. All of us who want to retain for our staff and our internal community the values of humanity, of consideration, of individualization, we're going to have to work at this to keep it. If we lost those things, we wouldn't be the first corporation that did. But we think we can be one of those corporations who achieve the benefits of size and corporate practice and still retain the values of individual consideration and customization.
And I think everyone on both of our agencies would love to hear what your vision is and where you see the affiliation process by the time you retire.
Going back to some, going back to some of the earlier remarks, this is going to be a multi-stage process. John Henley and I are pretty clear in our minds about what we want to have happen in the first 3 to 5 years going out. His job will be to familiarize himself with the client services at both organizations and to begin to develop a sense of what the potential is for the various combinations that we might consider. My job's going to be to create the administrative infrastructure that will support those things going forward. So while John will be thinking about array of services and the deployment of those services, I'll be thinking about how we unite Northern Rivers with Northeast and with Parsons, how we are able to access the best board talent we can find and make that available to the organizations and create some of the administrative processes that the affiliated group will be able to rely on going forward. I think down the road the sky's the limit, and my successors, many of whom I think are in the two organizations now, will be able to make those decisions for themselves.
Sounds like an interesting road.
It is, and I hope a long one.
Yeah. Well, Ray, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for tuning in to Ask the CEO.
Thank you, Melissa.